Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome. My name's Vicky Eade and I'm from the People's Food and Farming Alliance. And I'm here tonight with the lovely, lovely Deborah Syrett, who is a herbalist. Now, she is a very, very wonderful herbalist who I've had the pleasure of speaking to a little bit. And I'm really, really looking forward to tonight. And I can tell we have got so many people coming in constantly because this is obviously a very, very popular session. And so Deborah's a herbalist and she's going to help us to start to understand how we can all use herbs to step outside of the medical system. I'm not sure if that might have been some of the appeal for everyone turning up tonight. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Debbie, because I know you love to focus on giving back the knowledge and the skills and helping people to feel really, really confident in what they're doing, so that they can look after themselves and their families just using herbs and natural products and without needing doctors or allopathic drugs. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to you, Debbie.
Right. The first thing I'm going to say is, why don't you put that meme up, Vicky?
Okay.
Okay. Just for a moment for people to have a look at.
So let me oh, hello. Can't do it that way. Share screen.
She had to take it from me, guys, because I'm so tech unsavvy.
Can you see that? Is it there?
Yep, I can see it.
Oh,
right. Thank you. Okay. So, hello, good evening. I presume it's evening for everybody at the moment. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to the People's Food and Farming Alliance for actually asking me to speak, because I have been looking for an organization that's doing exactly what you're doing for the last 4 years at least. It fits in completely with what I'm trying to do, and I'm hoping that we can actually get a community together to actually make my dream sort of a reality. So as you can see from the screen, I'm a bit of an old bird. I've got a Bachelor of Honours Science degree in herbal medicine. I'm a GAPS practitioner. I've studied with Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride and a couple of other doctors when I finished my degree. I don't think I really started being a herbalist until I became the resident herbalist at a community garden in East London for 5 years. Vicky, can you get rid of the meme and put it back to, because it's a bit, that's better. That's better. I can see people now a bit more. Okay, so normally people can't shut me up for about 3 hours. So I've tried to be a lot more organized this time. So what I'm going to do is talk about what I do at the moment in my communities, then what my idea is. And I've got some fun stuff that I showed Vicky. I can't travel light. I can't tell you guys how much I wish I was a masseuse or sort of did essential oils or something, because I seem to end up with having to have sort of great big crates of stuff every time I do a workshop. So what I do with my local communities is I run herb walks, identification for medicine, for food, and I do workshops on medicine making, on survival techniques, so how to make simple herbal medicines, how to actually do food preservation, things like fermentation. And I teach. I've got a monkey brain, basically. The best gift my mum gave me was a memory where I'm a sponge. I soak things up from everywhere, and I'm interested in everything, and I'm really, really, really stubborn. So I want to know, I want to understand. When somebody tells me something, I need to go into it and I need to understand why, which is why I chose to do herbal medicine for my degree rather than anything else, because they could explain to me how it works, why it works. Whereas if I was also offered a degree doing homeopathy, and while I find that fascinating, and I certainly don't dismiss it, it's a lot more difficult to explain to people. And what blew me away with my training was that I could take you guys out on a walk into scrubland, and I could point out a rather unprepossessing, I won't call it a weed because I refuse to call it a weed, that could heal your liver. And I was born, brought up in Hong Kong, and I didn't even look at a leaf until I did my degree. And so that to me was magical. I've also become a very, very strong Christian, and I believe that these things have been put on there sort of to help us, and right back to the point where we observed animals treating themselves and choosing herbs to get well. We've had this tradition. So when Rockefeller sort of formed what they now call orthodox medicine, he destroyed natural medicine, which was the orthodox medicine, and it was what we all knew. Nobody could afford to go to a doctor. So 50, 60 years ago, your nan, if you had a cold or a cough or a sore throat, you wouldn't dream of going to see a GP for that, because they would either have something in their garden that they could go and pick, or they would know somebody who would have something that they could use to make you well. Now, I no longer see patients privately, mainly because of, if you remember that meme, most people, unfortunately, in our society have been so indoctrinated into the idea that there's a quick fix, and they don't want to change anything, that as a natural practitioner, it's very, very frustrating, because I would be saying to you, you need to change your diet, you need to change your stress, you need to deal with things that are going on in your life. And while I would give you something to help, hopefully to support you through that, it would be up to you whether you did it or not. And I think the saddest thing about our current medical profession is that the way they're taught, we really go to a doctor, not, I know people go because they think they're the experts. I can tell you now that there's only two experts in your life, you and God. You are the only person who really knows about you. And while a doctor can make a guess at what's going on if you're worried about something, very often people aren't very good at explaining when they go to a doctor what is going on, and they forget to tell them a vital detail. Let me give you an example. You get a bruise, or you start bruising. Now you go and see a doctor, and if they're diagnosing, what they should do is they should say, have you had a fall? First of all, that would be the most obvious reason. Now, if you hadn't had a fall, but you suddenly started getting bruising, it might be your liver. It might be a serious metabolic thing, so you had diabetes. It might be that you've got a problem with your blood and proteins aren't being produced properly in the liver. Now, I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm going off piste again. So, right, what I do. So the most important thing I do is I re-teach people how your bodies work. And Once you understand that pretty much every single pharmaceutical drug treats symptoms, not diseases, and isn't designed to actually make you well, then you kind of get an idea of the difference between herbs and drugs. They aren't the same. I get people coming to talks all the time saying sort of, but didn't they find this drug in this natural product? I mean, certain examples are metformin, which they actually found in a herb called Galiga, which is goat's rue. Another one which you will know is aspirin, which actually is salicylic acids, but they dragged it into a lab and they meddled with it, and they turned it into acetyl salicylic acid, and it has an incredibly important difference from the natural product. Aspirin will it is quite dangerous because it actually thins the blood quite dramatically, and taking it chronically or acutely can be very dangerous. You can end up with massive bleeding in the stomach. In fact, it's the biggest reason for people being hospitalized acutely in the world, well, except for current situations. I won't go into that today. But another one which is very interesting is digoxin. Now, I don't know whether any of you have heart failure. I'll try and go into this very, very quickly. Digoxin comes from foxglove, digitalis. When they discovered it was so powerful, they took it away from herbalists. They said we couldn't use it because we couldn't be trusted with it. Now, the difference, I think, in a nutshell, the difference between a herb and a drug is that digitalis is one chemical. It's a cardiac glycoside. It's a natural chemical, but if you look at digitalis, the actual herb, it's got hundreds and hundreds of active constituents in it, as all herbs do. Now, digitalis, or digoxin, the drug, is very clever. When you've got heart failure, your heart muscle is weak and you can't send blood around your heart, your body very well, very effectively. So the chambers don't fill very well. So you get a lot of different symptoms. You get palpitations and tiredness and swelling in the ankles and all sorts of things, and anxiety. And there's one chemical, the cardiac glycoside actually slows the heart down, because you're getting palpitations because the body is trying to compensate for the fact that your muscle isn't working properly. So it slows the heart down so the chambers can fill properly. And then it actually makes the muscle of the heart contract harder, so that it sends the blood much more efficiently around the body. Now, when they took it away from us, we don't use obviously drugs at all anyway. We just went on and we used, I'm going to ask all of you to promise and pinky swear that you won't sort of go out and use this, because it's quite a powerful herb. But we now use lily of the valley, which has cardiac glycosides in it. But it clears from the body much faster because it's a whole herb, not a single chemical. And that, in a nutshell, is really the difference between herbs and drugs, although they can be very powerful. And I've got things in my pharmacy that I would only give in drop doses. So, right, so what I do, I teach enemas, I teach castor oil packs, I teach Epsom salt baths, absolutely everything that can turn your health around, and you might need to use all of them. My idea, because I know I've got to be very careful with time, when all of this, excuse my French people, shit show started, I kind of came out of retirement, and because I decided I had to do something, so I started teaching locally and trying to get people confident enough to start using herbs so that they didn't have to rely on going to hospitals or go to see doctors, and they started learning how to look after themselves properly with these natural remedies. And what I decided would work would be for us all to form communities where we had a living pharmacy. So everybody who has a garden, a sort of a box on their windowsill, or actually just has access to wild places, they would all have two reference books, the same reference books. And the two ones that we decided on, this is my little local group, was a medical encyclopedia, which is actually the first herbal I bought when I was doing my degree. It's not really designed for people who are beginners, but it's very useful because it literally is an encyclopedia of health and of herbs. So you can look up a condition, or you can look up a herb, and it will tell you what herbs can be useful for that condition. And the other one, which, I mean, this lady is a genius. She's still working. She's a lady called Penelope Oddy. She's written loads of herbals. Her herbals are exquisite and beautiful and very easy to follow. Wonderful diagrams, lots of descriptions on how to make medicines. And with these tools, everybody would have those two books, and we would have a list, a central list of who was growing what herbs. We would be growing as many important medicinal herbs as we could manage in our community, and get into our little gardens, or we would know where they were growing in the wild near us. And so if somebody was sick, or somebody had a child who suddenly got ill, they could ring a central point and say they've got this problem, or they could look in their books and say they need to find this. Who in our community has this herb? And it really was as simple as that. So I tried to shove as many. I am a terrible gardener, people. I am such a bad gardener, but I have shoved as many important medicinal herbs into my garden as I can, praying that they're going to survive. So I've managed to get about 50 things in there, in small amounts. I mean, a little bit of echinacea, a little bit of sort of one of my favorites, Leonoris cardiaca, which is motherwort. So I'll go back a little bit, as you said, monkey brain. I don't see patients, but I try to support people. So I had somebody who came to one of my tincture making workshops recently. Wonderful, wonderful, clever young man who has two little boys. And after he'd been to the workshop, he contacted me because his twins were not well. And so I spent a long time going backwards and forwards, because he no longer wanted to go and put them on antibiotics, or sort of go to the chemist and find medicines. So I supported him through that. And that was such a joy for me. This is what I live for. This is what my existence is for. And sorry, emotional here. So that's my idea. If anybody is good at admin and can get me in hand and make this a reality, I would love it. And I would love to work with the People's Food and Farming Association, because Alliance, because I think I saw on X actually yesterday the new initiative that you were doing with Grow Free. And that's exactly what I think we need in our new world. we all need to be supporting each other. We all need to be there for each other. And the only thing I've got to offer is a head crammed full of information that does come out at the right time when people ask me questions. So trying to keep me sort of on track when I'm talking to myself. I'm so glad I can see you guys. Right, so that's basically my idea and kind of what I do, and I'm very happy to clarify that if anybody's got any questions. But the things, let me see if, well, I'm going to actually just quickly go through this. I don't know whether any of you are aware, but prescribed pharmaceutical drugs are now the #1 killer in America. The #1. Originally, when I was first training, they were #3. If anybody's interested in the history of medicine, I thoroughly recommend a book called The Green Pharmacy. It's fascinating because it takes you right from the beginning of medicine to when it was corrupted and taken over by Rockefeller. Oh, I haven't shown you my t-shirt, guys. Can you see it? Okay, right. I have so many rude t-shirts now. I don't wear anything else. I've got lovely clothes, but I never get a chance to wear them. So now I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to just quickly whiz through some of the stuff. Can you see? Okay, this is what I mean by I don't travel light. Okay, right. So let me try and go on to things. Now, the difference for, you're all different. Which is why one medicine fits all doesn't work. It's completely and totally nonsense. You've all got different weaknesses. You've all got different DNA and epigenetics, which is basically lifestyle, diet, everything you've done for yourselves and where you've got to. If you've got chronic diseases, I imagine that they probably started maybe 20 years ago. So you're not going to solve that overnight, but I don't believe that any disease is beyond healing at all. And I think probably some of you may be fans of Barbara O'Neill. I'm an enormous fan of Barbara O'Neill. I will never be Barbara O'Neill. I'm far too angry and sort of yeah, but I aspire to be Barbara O'Neill. Okay, so some of you have time, some of you have money and no interest really in sitting in your kitchens and making tinctures and things, okay? How long have I got, Vicky?
Well, I would say as long as you want, but I know that we have to keep to a schedule.
God, okay, right.
10, 15 minutes.
All right, okay. Right, so these I don't make lots of things, but I do lots of things in workshops. So my recommendation to people, I used to have colleagues who did expensive kind of cream making courses and things like that. And people went along and they spent a lot of money doing it. And I went along to one of them to see what it was like. And people had a lovely day and they made these lovely creams and things. And I can bet you any money you like that they went home and they never used it ever again. Or at least maybe one of them might have. What I do is not pretty, but it is the easiest ways of helping you to make things that you can put on your shelves and that you will have there as medicines, so that if you get ill, you don't have to go, oh, blast, why didn't I make that damn thing? And you've got it there on your shelf and you can use it. And the best one for that is tinctures by far. But there are other things that also last long time. One of them is a pity we haven't got smelly vision, because this is fire vinegar, and it's got chilies and garlic and onions and all sorts of lovely things in it, and it stinks to high heaven, but it lasts forever. Oh my God, I just opened it a bit. This one is another one that will sit forever pretty much, and that's actually onion syrup. And that is, and if you've got cold or flu or anything like that, that will actually last forever. The only tincture I make for myself all the time is it's Vaccinia myrtillis, which is bilberry leaf. And that is fantastically good for your peripheral circulation. I've got type 2 diabetes in my family, and in fact my degree dissertation was on the prevention and treatment of type 2 diabetes in the Ayurvedic tradition. And it was fascinating because they've understood the condition far, far longer than our Western doctors. And one of the things that might amuse you is I bought this in a local shop actually yesterday for you. Can you see that? Yeah. Does anybody, well, you can't answer me, but if anybody knows what that is, that's an extremely bitter vegetable called bitter gourd or Corella, Mamordica charantia. Now, that's used actually in the Ayurvedic tradition, but it's also used West Indian ladies. It's a big problem, diabetes in West Indian ladies, well, in culture. And they're very naughty because they know that this little vegetable is so good at grabbing excess sugars from your blood and making you pee them out, that what they do when they have to go and see the doctor is that they make themselves a meal with it on the night before. And so when they have to go and see their doctors, their blood sugar is very good. And their doctor says, oh, you've been so good. And they just use this basically to cheat. But it is extremely good to actually have in the medicine. And I've got medicines that actually have it in it. Now, if you actually aren't up for making things or you haven't got the confidence yet, the thing you learn when you're learning how to use herbs is that not only are they not like drugs, but now let me show you. This is one of my professional herbals. Okay, you can see the state of it. And every single page of it is one herb. And that is, you can see if you look at each herb that they have 50 different actions. They're anti-inflammatory, they are antifungal, they're whatever. And this is the problem that Orthodox medicine has with herbs. And so it's a bit mind-blowing if you're just starting off and you don't know how to tackle that. But what you do is you start with a relatively simple formula or just one herb, and you see if it helps. And then if that doesn't work, you sort of do a little bit more research and you put something else instead. Now, if you don't like making things or you don't think you can, there are a few, thankfully nowadays, very, very good companies. One of them is Neal's Yard, which I think some of you will know quite well. Now, this is what I love being a herbalist. This is advertised as a foot cream. But it's got comfrey and marshmallow in it. Now, both of those are tissue healers, very, very powerful and very, very good tissue healers. So I don't use it as a foot cream. I use it if I've got cracked, I was actually putting it on my face because I had a cracked lip. I'd sort of split my lip. So I was putting it on there, and it's very, very good for the skin. Comfrey is an amazing healer anyway. So you don't have to get tied up in what it says it's for. You just look at the herbs that are in it, go to one of your books, and then see what those herbs are good for. So if you would rather go and get yourself a little stock of some great medicines to have on your shelf that are ready-made by a professional company, I mean, the thing you would make would be just as good, to be perfectly honest, once you get the confidence. But if you'd rather do that to begin with, there's nothing wrong with that at all. This is what I mean, but I don't teach conventional stuff. So this is another one. This is Napier's, a very, very old English herbal company. This one is advertised as a mouthwash. Now, this one actually has an amazingly powerful herb in it called Hydrastis canadensis, which is golden seal. It's very expensive, so it's probably only got a small amount in. I don't use this as a mouthwash. I use this if I have a really bad upper respiratory problem or throat infection, and I will gargle with it, or I will even take a few drops actually in a hot drink. So can you see where that's kind of working? Now, a few more amusing things. Okay, I'm drinking something I wildcrafted. I'm speeding up. Have you noticed, Vicky? This is a thing I wildcrafted, which is water mint, which is the best mint I've ever found. I found it a couple of years ago at the back in one of my ponds. This is oh, you need smell-o-vision, is a thing called Tilia europea, which is actually lime flower. It smells divine. It's one of the best things for stress and sleep that you can get. And it only has a very short season because you have to harvest the flowers and things. So I did a harvesting session with my group. And two of the things that are growing in my garden, or three of the things, does anybody know what this thing is? Can you see? Sticky weed or sticky willy or Galium aperine, which they've used since Roman times, and you can't mistake it for anything else. Very, very easy to recognize. There's nothing really else that's like it. That is one of the best lymphatic herbs that you will be able to find anywhere. So if you've got somebody who's, even if they've got a really nasty infection or something like breast cancer, where they've taken out the lymph nodes and they've got swelling under their arms, you can make a poultice with this, and you can actually continually put the poultice on there. But you can also make one of the nicest little stories I had with this one is an old Welsh herbal, which says that if you make a Galium water from it, which is one of the easiest things you can do. You don't even have to boil it or add hot water. You just chop it up and put it in a pan with nice clean water and the lid on top, and leave it overnight, and then you drink the water. If you do that for a month, you'll be so beautiful, everyone will fall in love with you. So there you go. Anybody else want to see it? So it's everywhere at the moment. There's not much that's out, but you will be able to find this. But one of the other things, as I said, I'm also teaching survival now, and I know a lot of people are getting very concerned about the poisons that we're being sprayed with every day, and obviously wild things are also suffering. But I have to say that if they start treating all the stuff that they're selling in supermarkets, and people are really getting worried about that, go and pick nettles, go and pick chickweed, go and pick Galium. You are surrounded by edible, nutritious food everywhere that you are. And you just need a little bit of confidence in identification. You've obviously got to be a bit careful with that, but there are things, I mean, I don't think any of you would mistake stinging nettles for anything else. Nice little story about stinging nettles. I know some of you will know that it was used traditionally very often for people with rheumatism. They used to thrash themselves with it. Never done that. Interestingly, the thing that happens when people have inflammation, any kind of inflammation in the body, is one of the main chemicals that's produced is the thing called histamine. And that actually produces red rashes, and what happens with inflammation is it's a healing mechanism in the body. What's supposed to happen is that you get this cascade of chemicals all being produced that goes into a crescendo, and then there's a negative feedback and it clicks you back into health. Now, when you've got chronic inflammatory conditions, that last bit doesn't work. And people, now, if you've got hay fever, asthma, anything like that, all of that is one of the things that they'll give you if you go to the chemist or the doctor, obviously, is antihistamines. Now, histamine is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So it has a very, very profound effect in your brain. And it keeps you awake and very alert. And that's one of the problems with, so if you imagine, if you've got lots and lots of histamine in your body because you've got a constant inflammatory condition, what happens when you take an antihistamine, they warn you not to drive or use machinery because it makes you sleepy. Yeah. So that's why, that's what happens. And very often when people have that they have chronic inflammatory conditions, they have sleeping problems as well. There you are. I was going to go back to stinging nettles. Stinging nettles are very high in histamine. So you'd think, why would that work with an inflammatory condition? My theory is that, and this is a little lesson in the way the body works, is that when you have a chronic condition and it's not resolving, it will take you up to that threshold level where you can't get to it yourself because your system isn't able to, and it will click you over into resolving it. Now that's just a theory of mine. One of the best examples I can tell you of the way your body works in that way is that people who are first-time parents and they have a young child, when that child gets a fever or gets sick, they're terrified, because what happens with a young person is that they will produce a fever, really, really high fever, really fast. And they find that incredibly frightening. And yet they should be rejoicing, because all that's telling you is that this little kid's body has got a really, really strong immune system, and it's working. Because all of the things we treat and we stop with the medicines we get from the chemist or the doctor, all of these things are actually stopping the body's immune system getting rid of what's attacking you. So the high fever, the cough, the mucus, the sneezing, all of these things are designed. I mean, the most dramatic example I can give you is if you eat something that's really, really bad for you and it's a poison, what happens? You puke, or you get very bad diarrhea, hopefully, if your immune system's working well. And that is not a bad thing. In fact, in communities that aren't wussy like ours, like the Ayurvedic tradition again, they still use herbs which are cathartics that will actually make you puke, because it's one of the best ways of resolving a number of quite deep-seated diseases. But can you imagine if you went into your doctor these days and he said, I want you to take this, and it's going to make you really, really sick. But in fact, that's a very, very healthy thing to do if you know what you're doing. So all of this old knowledge that we had has been lost. And this is what I do or try to do. So let me go back to the child. So what they should be doing, or what you should be doing as a parent, is knowing what the safety margin is for a fever. So you don't let it go above that, but and you monitor it and you manage it with cold compresses on the head. You wrap them up and you help them to sweat, which is one of the ways you get the infection out of you, which is also one of your most important bits of your immune system. And I can guarantee you that within a day or 2 days, they'll be up and bouncing about again. Now, compare that to the other end of life. The reason why elderly people are in so much danger of things like influenza and things is that their immune systems don't work very well. And so by the time they have symptoms, the infection has gone so deep into their lungs that it's difficult to treat. And again, you would be trying to support that. But we were taught when I was training that unless somebody's at death's door, the sicker you are, the slower you go. So you don't bombard them with some really powerful pharmaceutical drug. You actually support the body. Let me see. Can I talk about one other type of herb it's unique because there's nothing like it in the pharmaceutical world? People will probably have heard of adaptogens. I'd say there are probably about 5 adaptogens. There probably are more, but that people know. One of the ones that people would recognize most is ginseng. And and then there's one which they call Siberian ginseng, which isn't actually ginseng at all, but they knew that if they called it ginseng, you'd pay much more for it. That's kind of the way that the market works. And then you've got other things like a herb called Centella asiatica, gotukola, and one of my favorites, which is called Withania somnifera. Now, adaptogens are very clever because stress is one of the most damaging things for our health. Chronic stress, very, very bad for you. And it's what they've been absolutely brilliant at producing for the last 5 years in us all. And it bashes your adrenal function so that you find it difficult to cope. So people get anxiety and all sorts of awful conditions, and it leads to very, very serious chronic conditions. It's one of the main causes of diabetes. Now, if you compare, say, being in a very stressed situation, somebody's lost a relative, that's one type of stress. You've got another type of stress where people are sitting on a sofa eating rubbish all day, which obviously people will connect to diabetes. But what you might not know is that athletes are in as much of a danger of developing diabetes as the person who sits on the couch. Particularly when they stop training, because when you're an elite athlete, you're pushing your body beyond what is normal. Now, our doctors don't use adaptogens and they don't recommend them. I can tell you who does: the Russians. They feed them to their athletes like peanuts, because what adaptogens do is they support your adrenal function. So they support your stress mechanism. And so when you are in a stressful situation, your body is being pushed to the limits. But when you take an adaptogen, that stress does not have the same amount of damage. So I hope that's a very, very sort of quick explanation of what they are. So you can imagine, if you want elite athletes, you really want to give them adaptogens. And I probably wouldn't do a prescription without an adaptogen in it. You know, I mean, they're so, so important. Another one that some of us call adaptogens, myself included, in fact, is licorice, because that actually has a direct cortisol action in the body. It is actually natural. It interacts with our cortisol receptors. Right, so I think that's probably blinded you. I've got so many other things to talk about, Vicky. Oh dear. Right, so I've probably forgotten all sorts of things. Right, so in terms of my idea, when I was the resident herbalist at the community garden, I did a big list, which was a harvesting list, which was all the herbs that were in the garden. And it was the part you use, when you harvest it, and what the actions are. And in fact, I was very precise, the amount of alcohol you needed for the tinctures as well, and what form you used it, whether you used it in dry or fresh or whatever. So that's kind of the basis of the list that I'll be working on for forming the thing. So, right. Oh, right. And I picked these up as well. No, see, I'm sorry. I am not an organized speaker. How many of you know that they banned hydrochloroquinone? How many of you know that this tonic water actually contains cinchona, which is the herb? It's actually red cinchona bark that they found quinine in. And so you can just go and buy this if you like, but you can also go and buy yourself some red cinchona bark and make your own hydrochloroquinone. Okay, right. And for others who, again, are worried about picking things, I always have things like this when I go and do my workshops. Some of you may not know, I know they've been pushing pine needle tea for the people who've taken the jabs. And I'm sure that there is great benefit to them, but the one thing that drives me completely bonkers is people who make vast amounts of money out of pushing superfoods. They find something that people need and they then promote it madly, and it's not easily available and it becomes very expensive and it drives me potty. The other thing that's really good for people who've had the jabs is dandelion leaf. Dandelion leaf tea. Dandelion leaf will actually block the spike proteins from getting into the cells. They block the ACE2 receptors. So if you can't, I mean, I hope you all know what a dandelion looks like. Go and pick some flipping leaves and make some tea for the people who need it in your lives. Thymus vulgaris, one of the best herbs to have, whether you have it in tincture or syrup or tea or anything else, for all kinds of respiratory conditions, for your kidneys, for your stomach. And again, you can buy the teas, and that's a very good make. Oh, I think I'm coming to an end, Vicky. Oh, and just another example of what you don't do that they tell you to do. If you get acid reflux, which I do because I have a hiatus hernia, the thing you do not want to do is to take antacids. They are disastrous. First of all, they leave you open to much more higher chance of getting stomach cancer. And you need to get yourself some slippery elm and make yourself some gloopy, what they call porridge, because it turns into a kind of gloopy porridge thing. And you need to drink that after every meal, basically. And it literally coats the mucous membranes of your esophagus and protects them against inflammation from the acids and things. There's other things you can do, but I can't give you my entire repertoire in half an hour. Okay, I think, am I done? I think I'm done. I mean, I can go into much more things if you want me to, but do you want to open it to people who've got specific questions?
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. And I've got loads of questions coming in, but also loads of people like saying, please, can you come back? So yes, and yes, and yes, we will. Don't worry. This was just like a little intro. And we will come back with much more specific, because I was hoping that you would all love Debbie as much as I do. So the first question, what were could you hold the books up again, please? People wanted
Yes.
the names.
Yes, I will. Now, we went through a lot of ones, but I thought very carefully about what you needed to start off. So the first one is that It comes in 2 different versions, but basically it doesn't have pretty pictures. It doesn't have identifications or anything like that. It is literally an encyclopedia. So you can look up, and it goes right from a cough or bronchitis to different kinds of cancer. One thing I will say as a caveat is that if people are not used to doing this and you're starting off, the thing about learning about all this stuff and doing any kind of medical degree, believe me, is that you actually think you have everything. You read symptoms and you go, oh my God, I'm dying. So please sort of try to protect yourselves against that. So that's one. And the other one is, this is just one version, but I think anything by Penelope Oddy is brilliant. I mean, there's only really 2 authors that I love. Don't buy a herbal that isn't written by a herbalist. Very important. I made that mistake when I was doing my degree. I bought one written by a doctor because I thought it'd be interesting. And he finished every single entry with, not really enough research done, need to have more clinical studies, which was a complete and total waste of time. So that's beautiful. That's actually got lots of lovely pictures. It's got lots of instructions on how to make tinctures and all sorts of things if you want to go into that yourselves. But I wanted people to have the same books so that hopefully when you form communities and we do this, you can ring Sally sort of in the next village and say, look, my husband's got this symptom, but I think I need this herb. What do you think? They can look up the same book. They can even look up the encyclopedia and say, I haven't got that herb, but I have got this herb. Yeah.
For sure. So many lovely comments coming in for you. And so, yeah, I think, sorry, I'm just trying to read these. Oh, by the way, I love the teapot that you have.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Oh,
I'm afraid I would be embarrassed to have anybody come into my kitchen. I have no normal things. My entire kitchen and cellar and everything else is just tinctures and dried herbs. And
isn't that beautiful?
If you go on eBay and just type in glass teapot, but there are some beautiful ones. I always take glass teapots to workshops because people love seeing the herbs actually brewing. There's something magical about it. And I'd say one wonderful, and I should take my own advice on this more often, but one of the best things you can do for yourselves if you suffer from stress is to get a wonderful healing tea and properly brew yourself a tea. Sit down, watch it brewing, put some music on, or just sort of sit in the silence. And it's so good for you. It's wonderful, as good for you as the tea, frankly.
Yeah, that is the ceremony, isn't it? With the and that just giving yourself that time to calm. So a few people are having to go now. Don't worry, everybody, because I will be arranging quite a few more of these, but I've actually got some really good ideas of things that I want to discuss with Debbie. I just wanted her. This was her very first Zoom, and I think she did fabulously. And I just wanted to get her to have a little confidence before I present her with my next idea, which I will be doing, and then I'll let you all know. If you didn't get pictures of the books, don't worry. I'll be sending the replay out because I know that several of you have said that you want to go through it again and write more notes. I'll send you the transcript as well, so that will make that easier. And I'll send the names of the books for you too. And yes, there may well be a few little things about making tinctures and such like. I'm going to squeeze every last drop out of all of that amazing knowledge. Actually, that would probably take me far too long. So we'll just start to get some of the knowledge to come out as we can. Oh, how lovely. So Anna is in Portugal at the
Hello,
minute. I'm
Anna.
building my own healing herbs garden in case we can connect. That this would be great. Well,
Love
interestingly enough,
you.
some of you know that I'm at my little farm in East Sussex, and one of the things that we are setting up, by the way, Deborah, is a medicinal garden. So I'm like hugely, and I would really, really like us to be able to form networks amongst ourselves using Debbie's amazing guidance, so that we all have access to this kind of thing in the future, because it is the future. We need to kind of chop out the last 120 years or so and go back to what we should be doing. Yeah, so gosh, I don't know if you can see the comments.
I
There's so
can.
many lovely comments. So thank you, everybody. Thank you
Oh,
for appreciating Debbie, although I think it would be very hard not to appreciate this lovely lady.
can I say, Vicky, I don't know
Yeah.
if any of you guys are anywhere near me, but I'm sure, Vicky, I would be very happy for people to take my email address if you want to come along to any workshops. I was thinking of doing a fermentation workshop sometime in May. Basically, it's one of the best ways to keep your veg. I have got 2 enormous crocks of fermented veg, and I also made a wild crock a couple of years ago, one of which is at least 2 years old. And it's delicious. It's just so good. So these are things it's so much fun to learn. And remember, we never had refrigeration. But the next thing I'm teaching myself, by the way, this is I'm going to teach myself how to keep meat. So that's the next one. But I already make my own kefir, and I've made kombucha, and I at last actually mastered bread. It took me about 12 goes, but I've done it. I've done it.
Well done.
So yeah, I'm sure lots of you are much better than I am at it. So thank you very much for inviting me on, and the more we can make this grow,
Yeah.
the better. And I would be happy to do workshops for people. If you're anywhere near me, get in touch, share your knowledge. People from different cultures have different herbs they know about. The reason, I mean, as I said at the beginning, I was born and brought up in Hong Kong. I was offered the chance of doing Chinese herbal medicine, and I have an enormous respect for Chinese herbal medicine, but something in me said, no, I need to understand the herbs that are around me. And I am so glad with what's happened that I did choose that, because, and I know people love homeopathy, and I know that they love essential oils, but the one thing I'd say to you is, if you had to, and they really locked us down, how would you make a homeopathic remedy? How would you make an essential oil? Whereas they cannot stop you going for a walk and picking a wild plant.
That's so true, because I do aromatherapy,
Yeah.
and exactly what you said, when we were going through that, I had that thought. It's like, okay, well, I've got all these oils, but I can't make these myself.
Yeah.
And so exactly, and that's when I started getting interested in herbalism, because exactly as you say, you can go outside, like the cleavers that you had earlier. I keep walking past them on my walks, and it's just knowing what to do with those weeds and how we can actually use them, and the skills.
Sacrilege.
I know. But no, it's brilliant. So thank you so much. In fact, look, Gwyneth says, I'm from South Africa. A lot of European herbs grow easily here, but our indigenous healing plants are also fantastic. Few people know about their miraculous healing powers. And so again, that goes back to what you just said.
Absolutely.
About knowing your local herbs, and even just simply being able to recognize. I did a foraging morning last year, and even just being able to walk on your normal walk and say, oh, actually, I know what that is. And oh, what that, just things like that, rather than walking past all these plants that you've got no idea what they
Oh,
are. So
one
then
thing I
it comes,
forgot.
yeah,
Oh, conkers,
uh-huh.
right? I mean, these are very old. I should have cut them first and actually done something. Aesculus hippocastanum, horse chestnut, has very, very high levels of a chemical called saponins in them. And that's where they find soap. That's what you make soap from.
Oh yeah,
So
you put them
you
in your
could
washing.
actually pick conkers, cut them, and you can make yourself soap and
Yeah.
washing powder and things with them. And you can take it internally as well. It's very, very good for strengthening your venous circulation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think I've seen those. People use them like in the washing machine. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, no, those are soap nuts, but
okay.
they are the same things. And actually, there's a herb called saponaria, which is very, very strong. It's got loads and loads of saponins in them. Aha,
Brilliant.
there you go, soap nuts.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
saw that.
we've got, so to quickly answer some of the repeating questions.
Yeah.
So things like core herbs, etc. We will, don't worry, that's kind of when I talk
We
to
will.
Debbie, we'll cover
I
that
think
kind of
rather,
thing.
yeah. If I did that now, you'd be absolutely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it will be different slightly for each of you, because each of you is going to have different weaknesses, different things you're worried about. So there will be certain things we all want, but certain things that you specifically want to make sure that you have.
Yeah. So where was it? Yeah, so don't worry about all of that. We will be coming up with it. I saw a really lovely thank you, Debbie. You're a living pharmacy of wisdom.
Oh,
There was quite a few that were similar to that. And yes, as Sue says, self-sufficiency is key in all issues. And it really is, isn't it? Because we all have to become sovereign in all of these different areas and remove ourselves from
yeah.
all of these systems that we suddenly realize that we're in. And now we need to find our way out of them. And then having wonderful people like Debbie to actually help us find our way out of these things is definitely the way to go. Right. So I'm just double checking. I see we've had some connections made already. That's fantastic. We will make more connections between everybody. That, you know, that's the whole idea of this, trying to link people up so that you've got local people. Okay.
I've got
Yeah.
preserved eggs down in my cellar as well that have been
Oh,
there for 2 years, and I tried them. I just preserved them in lime,
oh,
and
I've seen
they're
that.
absolutely
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
So, okay, is there anything else that anybody is desperate?
East London answer.
Debbie's in East London, because otherwise I think we'll be having more sessions like this, and ones where we can like have a Q&A, a bit like what we're intending to do, or what we're doing with the Grow Your Own membership. Then this will be a separate side of it where, and again, so people who've joined will be able to get the information and to talk to Debbie, but we just have to not overuse her, because we don't want to frighten her away or give her too
You're
much
not going to
to do.
frighten me away. It's become the joy of my life. I felt totally helpless and didn't know how I could help people with what was going on. If I can do this, I should be very, very happy.
Oh, good. Well, we'll be very, very happy to host you as much as we can. So I know that you've all enjoyed it, because there's been so many messages coming through. And Sue says, thank you so much for this. Invaluable. Yeah, it's been an absolutely fantastic session. I've loved it. I can't wait for the next one. And I know lots of you can't. I will send the recording out. It depends how long it takes to process, hopefully tonight. And then that will have the books in it, so we can all do a mass buy from wherever we find our books.
Get them secondhand. Most of them
Yeah,
are
exactly.
available. Yeah.
And then it also looks like you're quite well used as well. And you can look, even if they're brand new to you. I love it. Sometimes you get books like the secondhand books, like
Yeah.
and then you open them and the smells that come out of them, because they've been used somewhere previously for that. So they're much more fun than buying a
I
new one.
don't, unless somebody is quite experienced as using herbal medicine, I don't recommend they get the big one I showed you.
Yeah.
That's a bit overwhelming.
We
And
like the pictures too, I think.
you like the pictures, yeah, quite right. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I like herbs. I love herbs.
So please don't go away, Debbie. I'm
No.
going to stop recording. But thank you so much for coming,
Yeah.
everybody, and thank you for your participation and for your enjoyment. You know what, Debbie? We had like 50 people on, and hardly anybody's gone. A couple of people had to go and eat their dinner, but other than that, they're still here, hanging on to every word.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah. It's love you all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.